promises of democracy. Now is the time.
Good evening. It's good to see you all here this evening. On behalf of Francis Marion University, the Florence Chamber, and our overall sponsor, McLeod Health, welcome to the 14th annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. It is this time of year that we really take time to reflect on all of the things that Dr. King has represented in our lives. One of the things that I really enjoy about Dr. King is the fact that he looked at all people and did not distinguish between one person and another. And that's what we try to do with this program. Our goal is to give you information, to entertain you a little bit, and to give you an opportunity to reflect on some of the good things that he has made the way for. We would not be successful without the support of our president of Francis Marion University, Dr. Fred Carter, Tom Marshall, the president of the Florence Chamber, our overall sponsor, our board of trustees at Francis Marion, our students, and of course, all of you. We will begin the program by singing the Black National Anthem.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let us resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that our dark heart has brought us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast brought thy might, lead us into the light. Keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forgot thee. Shadow beneath thy hand, may we forever stand. True to our God, true to our native land.
At this time, we will have William Cody Simpson, who's our student body president, to come before you with a prayer.
Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to gather here to celebrate the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., one who dared to dream and ultimately gave his life in the pursuit of justice for all mankind. Let us not forget that we too have dreams and are thankful that you gave us a great example in Dr. King, so that we may also search for peace, equality, and an appreciation for differences. As we journey through these difficult times, give us the strength to continue to be faithful to one another and in the teachings of all who strive for a nation where we as a people can work on one accord for the betterment of the world. In your name we pray, amen.
At this time, we will bring forth the MLK Celebration Ensemble. This group of students have gotten together worked on the songs in an effort to give you a message from different places. A lot of times we're really focused on what type of music will get a message across. What I really appreciate about these students is they looked at different avenues. So it's important for you to understand where they're coming from and why they've chosen what they've chosen, and to listen to the words. Ladies and gentlemen, the MLK Celebration Ensemble.
We were free.
I had a dream all men were equal. I had a dream all men were free. I had a dream all wars were over, and we were living in harmony. We were free. I had a dream all men were equal. I had a dream all men were free. I had a dream all wars were over, and we were living in harmony. We were free. I had a dream all men were equal. I had a dream all men were free. I had a dream all wars were over, and we were living in harmony. We were free. I had a dream all men were equal. I had a dream all men were free. I had a dream all wars were over, and we were living in harmony. We were free. I'm gonna make a change for once in my life. It's gonna feel real good. It's gonna make a difference. It's gonna make it right. As I turn up the collar on my favorite winter coat, this wind is blowing my mind. I see the kids in the street with not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see their needs? A summer's disregard, a broken bottle top, and a one-man soul. They follow each other on the wind, you know, 'cause they got nowhere to go. That's why I want you to know I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. Na 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 na. I've been a victim of a selfish kind of love. It's time that I realize that there are some with no home and not nickels alone. Could it be really me pretending that they're not alone? A willow deeply scarred, somebody's broken heart, and a washed out dream. They follow the pattern of the wind, you see, 'cause they got no place to be. That's why I'm starting with me. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change.
Next, we will have Dr. Annie Brown, who will come and introduce our speaker for the evening. Dr. Annie Brown is a proud alum of Francis Marion University, and we're always happy to have her as part of this program and as a member of our committee. Dr. Brown?
We are honored this evening to have a keynote speaker who is an ambassador of human rights. Reverend Jesse Washington is South Carolina's retired 4th Commissioner of the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission. Reverend Washington served as the Chief Executive Officer of the Commission and the Secretary to the statewide 15-member Board of Commissioners. He directed the day-to-day operations of the Commission regarding policy development, fiscal affairs, human resources management, legal affairs, complaint investigation and resolution, community relations, fair employment programs, and fair housing programs. He represented the agency before legislative and congressional hearings, panels, and organizations, and served on panels and committees to formulate solutions to problems related to human rights. His service as the Commission's director was a continuation of his long history of public service, beginning in 1968 as a middle school social studies teacher. Reverend Washington served his country as a soldier in the U.S. Army and is a Vietnam War veteran. In 1974, he began his career with the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission as a field representative working with state agencies and the Equal Employment Opportunity Program. He received numerous awards and honors for his dedicated service, such as the prestigious Order of the Palmetto, which is South Carolina's highest award. Reverend Washington also served as Executive Director of the Greater Columbia Community Relations Council. Through his dedicated public service, Reverend Washington has been a leader in the development and implementation of many programs designed to enhance race relations both in South Carolina and nationwide. One of those programs was South Carolina's educational television's The Great Divides. Reverend Washington, a native of Rembrandt, South Carolina, earned a Bachelor of Science degree from North Carolina A&T State University and has completed graduate hours in community and occupational programs in education at the University of South Carolina. He pastors Zion Chapel Baptist Church No. 1, Columbia, South Carolina, and is currently a student at Lutheran Theological Southern Seminary, pursuing a Master of Divinity degree. He has a son, Jesse Washington III, and a daughter, Melissa Washington Gary. I met his lovely wife. We do not have her name, but I met her. She's sitting right there. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please join me in applause as we welcome Reverend Jesse Washington Jr. to the podium.
We bless God and we praise him. To the Martin Luther King Committee, to my good friend Dr. Fred Carter that I saw, hadn't seen him in a long time until tonight, to all of us that are present and all of us that are followers and believers in Dr. King's philosophy. I'm delighted to be here with you this evening for this great occasion. I want to thank my good friend Dr. Annie Brown for inviting me to come over and to share with you in this celebration. I've known her for some years now, and I find her to be a genuine person, a good person, and a solid follower of the philosophy of Dr. King. And I would like to thank her for such an outstanding introduction, on top of inviting me to be here with you. My wife is with me tonight, Vanessa. Stand up, sweetheart. Recognize her. I better clap too, huh? Vanessa is with me tonight, and we're so glad to have her. A few of my church members, or at least two of them, said they were going to be here. I don't know whether they're here or not, and the lights are in my eyes, and I can't. Are they here? Maybe not. Thank you, that's okay. But maybe they did not make it over. I wanted to recognize them if they were here. I don't hear any sound, so maybe they did not make it over. I ask members when I'm traveling out of town not to try to attend because gas is high and we don't want to put any undue expenses on anyone. When we were in Columbia, they're normally with me. So I'm just glad to be here with you all in this celebration as we celebrate the birthday and legacy of one of America's heroes, one of the heroes of the entire world, for that matter, known throughout the world as we know the world, and we're just so glad to be in celebration of it. As I was recalling and thinking about Dr. King is the only American, living or dead for that matter, that has a holiday named after him, dedicated to him. You remember we had Presidents Washington and Lincoln, but it's now President's Day. And so Dr. King is the only American that has a holiday, a legal holiday, dedicated to his great service. And we're just proud and glad to be asked to come and make some remarks in regard to that legacy of that great American, and happy to do so. I think that Dr. King has been and is, or his life, his philosophy, is a model for us all, and not just in America. As I mentioned, he's known worldwide. There are statues of him in England and various places across the world, and was just a fine model, I believed, called by God for a particular reason. And we're just glad and delighted to be here. We're not going to hold you long. We'll just make one or two remarks about Dr. King, and then maybe try to look at his message for us, or what we can glean from his work and his philosophy to make America better for us all. And he was such a great American. I met several people tonight too, and I'm glad I've met some new friends in here tonight, and we share some things together, particularly with McLeod Hospital and others that I met. I met another preacher tonight, as a matter of fact. Yes, so it's always good to meet another man or woman of the cloth. So I just feel very much at home, and of course this is not my first time being at Francis Marion. So I'm just glad to be here. Dr. Carter, I think it was before you got here, but my son-in-law, Gerald, is a Francis Marion graduate. But Gerald has been out for some time now, and I think it was before you. I think I remember when you came to Francis Marion. He's been gone for some time now because I have grandchildren, so that tells you Gerald's been gone for a while. But he's a Francis Marion graduate, and went on to is doing well. The Magna Carta of 1215, signed by King John of England, was the first, or one of the first known written documents or proclamations for freedom of people wanting to be free. Magna Carta is a Latin word, and it meant and means the Great Charter of Freedoms. And King John of England signed that proclamation after much pressure from the churches and the barons of that time. And it is a document that's looked at even today, and one of the first of man expressing the desire for liberties and for freedoms. And the Magna Carta influenced and inspired the early settlers in New England in what is now America, but at that time just a loosely gathering of states and territories. But it inspired, even before we got to the Founding Fathers, it inspired this feeling of liberties and freedom. And its inspiration went into our documents, the Declaration of Independence, and later on, the Constitution. We were inspired for liberty and freedom by the Magna Carta when we declared ourselves to be free and independent of England. And we used such language as, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those inspiring words went into us declaring ourselves a free and independent country, and we wanted to have liberties and freedom that we knew were not man-made. The liberties and freedoms that were talked about in that declaration and the earlier Magna Carta are freedoms and liberties that cannot be bestowed by man or cannot be bestowed by law. They are God-given. They're freedoms given by birth, by birth. And so our founding fathers were inspired by that document. And it is the pursuit of happiness that I believe that Dr. Martin Luther King took off on and sank his message and his work in that pursuit of happiness that our Declaration of Independence and that our Constitution calls for. It was his mixture within this context of the pursuit of happiness. It was his mixture of a spiritual understanding, yet and still a natural and legal and human understanding of where America needed to be. It is in that philosophy where I believe he was called and where he formed his ministry and where he formed his work in the context of the pursuit of happiness. Martin King believed, and we believe, that one cannot pursue happiness if they don't have equality and the freedom that everyone else has. And so it was in this light in December of 1955 when a young Martin King of 25 years old had completed his educational work and had accepted a pastorate of a church down in Montgomery, Alabama. It was during this time in December of 1955 that the so well-known Mrs. Rosa Parks sat down on a bus that she was not supposed to sit on because of the laws and the culture of that day. And it was on this December of 1955 when she sat down, but she was really standing up for the pursuit of happiness. For in her mind, anyone that paid their fare could sit anywhere on the bus. And I had a chance to meet Mrs. Parks. I had a chance to have lunch with her years ago. Of course, she's deceased now. And she said to me, and she has said over and over again, that what she was really interested in that day was just getting a seat. She was a seamstress. And she was tired. And she said what she wanted to do was pay her money and sit down, and she didn't feel like standing up. She told me that in Columbia when I had lunch with her. And of course, that refusing to give the seat up sparked electricity in Montgomery. For law enforcement was called, and we understand what occurred as a result of that. The leaders in the community got together to form the Montgomery Improvement Association. And this young minister, who was new in town, 25 years old, was selected to be the spokesperson. And that launched Dr. King's career. Not launched his career, I think that he really came to the crossroads of his calling, because he had been in school, he had seen America, he had done his educational work, he had done his spiritual work, and now he was put in a position where God had called him for him to exercise the gifts that God has placed within him. And his gifts was to exercise that in a spiritual way. When you're called by God, you exercise your gifts in a spiritual way, in a way that may be difficult, but a way that will cause progress to happen. And so what I want to talk about for just a few minutes is Dr. King's work and legacy, and what I believed it was couched in for him to do the work that he did. And I want to use a word that's familiar to us all, and that word is altruism, for I think that this was at the heart of this great American's work. Altruism, and King used a spiritual weapon to launch it. And the spiritual weapon that he used defines altruism in three ways. It's a universal altruism, a dangerous altruism, and a complete altruism. Altruism means to have genuine feelings for the well-being of another person. Genuine, real, genuine feelings for the well-being of another person is what altruism means. And I believe that King was possessed with altruism. I believe that when he came into his calling, he was equipped spiritually to do the work that was before him. As we know and as we remember, some of us at that time in America, in 1955 in America, we were going through some difficult days. We were not where we needed to be, and we were not where we wanted to be as a people, and relating to one another with all of the different mixtures of American culture. For we had come from various places around the world to be in America. And so I believe that Dr. King understood this altruistic feeling. I believe he understood it when he was actually caught by surprise to be the spokesperson for the Montgomery Improvement Council. Dr. King was smart enough to know and wise enough to know that force and violence was not going to change America, not in a positive way. He was smart enough to know that the numbers were not there to use force to change. And I think that he was spiritual enough to know that this thing had to be worked by God through him. And I think that he used this altruistic attitude to get accomplished what he got accomplished. For he is a man that is spoken of in all sectors of the world, spoken of by all the races, all the cultures, all the religions, spoken of with high regard. And I think that while he was not aiming at that to assume a big name or get a big name, he was aiming at equality and fairness for all of God's children. While he was not aiming at self-aggrandizement, that was not his aim. But he made a name for himself and a name for America in carrying out what God called him to do, I believe. And so this altruism, we want to look at it in three ways very briefly, and then look at what I believe is his message or his legacy to us in today's times. And today's world. This universal altruism is to have the wherewithal in one's self to have genuine feelings for other human beings. We do well with altruism when we're in our own group, when we're in our own circle of friends, when we're in our own neighborhood, when we're in our own fraternity, sorority, our own college, our own university, our own dormitory, our own church, our own race, our own gender. We do well. We have genuine feelings for other people. Where we missed the mark sometime, and where we missed it in the 50s and 60s and 40s, where we missed it was that we didn't have those genuine feelings for the well-being of another person outside of our group. That's where we got in trouble, isn't it? That's where we got in trouble. We didn't have those genuine feelings for someone different from us. And Dr. King possessed this altruistic feelings. He thought of himself and those in his race, those in his fraternity, those outside of his race, those outside of his religion, those outside of his denomination. He thought of them all as equal to himself. This was one of the spiritual weapons that God endowed him with, for when you are under a calling from God to make a difference for the benefit of everyone, you cannot have a selfish altruistic feeling. And we as humans, it's natural, it's normal. We have those feelings for people akin to us. Not just akin to us by blood, not just in the family line, but akin to us by culture, akin to us by religion, by denomination, by neighborhoods, by the way we think. All of us like to be around people that we like. That's natural, that's normal, and there's nothing wrong with that. The danger comes in is that when we associate with people we like and block everybody else out, that's when it becomes dangerous. That's the slippery slope. And that's the slippery slope that we can slide on even today if we're not careful. And so I said that King had a mixture of spiritual feelings, because to have this feeling of genuineness for the well-being of another person different from us, it's got to come from within inside. It's a matter that I have to work on every day. As a preacher, as a human being, I've got to work on it every day. I've got to do what that first commandment says: love my neighbor. My neighbor is not just a person living next door to me or down the street from me or even in my neighborhood. My neighbors are people I've never even met in my life, but they're fellow human beings. And I think that this was one of the spiritual weapons that Dr. King was possessed with. He had to know Martin King first. He had to know that he had this genuine feeling for the well-being of others. He couldn't be filled with hate. He couldn't be filled with envy. He couldn't be filled with anger to do the work that he did. Had to be even-handed, and even-handed in the way he felt about others. And I dare say that that's a challenge for us even today. And intellectually, we are there. Our intellect tells us that, yes, I do feel the same way about people that are like me as I do about people that are not like me. I do have genuine feelings. We will all say it. It's the natural thing to say. It's our intellect that's saying that. And we think it. But emotionally, it's a different thing. We got to work on it, and we got to work on it every day. It is just like a relationship. It's like a marriage. It's like a friendship. It must be worked on every day. I must work on that every day. I must work on having genuine feelings, wishing someone else well, doing for them, treating them, thinking about them, just as I do people that are like me and that are close to me, that are in my circle, in my church, in my neighborhood. For you see, if I'm caught with a myopia of sight where I'm only interested in people like me, I'm not doing very much. And I'll get caught up in anger and envy, and I'll get caught up in wanting to get even. wanting to get even. Dr. King could have easily been possessed with the attitude of getting even. Things were not right in America in 1955. We all know that because we brought laws into existence to change things. But this altruistic feeling, this genuine feeling, this universal altruistic feeling, I think, is what King was possessed with. This feeling and ability to go beyond one's station in life, beyond one's race, beyond one's religion, beyond one's comfort zone, is where he reached for and where he achieved, I believe. Secondly, I think that Dr. King possessed a dangerous altruistic attitude. Dangerous. How can altruism be dangerous? Altruism means to care for someone else and to do for someone. How can it be dangerous? It can be dangerous because there will be a time in life when one has to stand on what they believe in. And sometimes that goes against the grain. Sometimes it goes against our friends. But there will come a time in life when we have to stand on what we know to be right, even if our friends turn their backs on us. Altruism can be dangerous because sometimes it can cause us to be locked out and blocked out from our circle. And that's the danger of it. We get excluded. Some years ago, I have mentioned this to many people because it stays on my mind. Some years ago in my neighborhood, there was a move by the Department of Mental Retardation to build a house for people who are in the mental retardation system. They're good people. They're just like us, except they can't get 2 and 2 is 4 as quickly as we can. And so they need assistance, they need help. And so the Department of Mental Retardation wanted to build a home so that these folk could begin to become independent in their living. And some people in my neighborhood, I live in a mixed neighborhood, you name the race or culture, it's there. And so some people began to say, well, you know what? We don't want those folk in this neighborhood. They're dangerous. They might hurt our children. So we need to sign a petition to block them, keep them out. We need to get this petition to county council and city council and to the General Assembly to block them from coming in this neighborhood because they might hurt our children. And so some neighbors of mine were going around getting this petition signed, and they came to me. And I looked at the petition, I read it, and I looked at them. And I said, you know, there's something that puzzles me here. And what puzzles me is, what is it that you see in my personality, in my character, that would make you think that I would deny any of God's children from living somewhere? What is it about me that you would think I would sign such a document? Can't you see on my face, on my countenance, that I would never sign it? They became angry, walked away. I became isolated in the neighborhood. I would drive through and get waves, and now I got turning of their heads. But it didn't matter. Had to stand for what was right. And you remember, all of us in this room, I'm sure, have read it at one time or another, Dr. King's letter from Birmingham jail. I read that letter periodically. I just read it from time to time because it's inspiring. And you remember that letter he wrote was in response to men of the cloth as he was. He wrote that letter from jail in response to preachers, not from people who did not want integration, not from people who didn't believe in equality, not from people who thought that Rosa Parks was right for sitting down when she was really standing up, when she was really sitting down. The letter came from preachers, clergymen, y'all know that, challenging King. Called him an outsider, troublemaker. Martin King, in his eloquent response, was saying, how can you all say that? You fellow preachers like I am, you should be here helping me. How can I be an outsider when I'm an American citizen? Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And he reminded them of the Apostle Paul and reminded them of their training. That letter he wrote was not in response to people who were doing wrong. It was in response to clergymen. He had to take a stand against fellow preachers who told him his timing was off and told him he was causing trouble and agitating and he ought not be there in Birmingham. Go on back to Montgomery. Go back to Atlanta. Don't come down here causing disturbance. Fellow members of the cloth. It took courage to write that letter. And now that letter is a model letter. It is read all over the world. It is read in high schools. It's read in colleges and universities. And it's a model letter. But he was possessed with this altruistic feeling. And sometimes it will bring danger upon you. For he was isolated to the point where he could not have visitors at that time in jail. The authorities said, nobody's going to visit him. He's an agitator. He'll sit in there by himself. And it is within this background that he was possessed with this genuine feeling for the well-being of others and continue to do his work. So we've got to be possessed with a dangerous altruistic attitude. And then Dr. King possessed this last phase of altruism, complete altruism. It means going the extra mile. It means doing more than you are called upon to do, going the extra mile. You know, like the man did on the Jericho Road, with the man that was beaten and left for dead. And he checked on him and he nourished him and he ministered to his heart and his mind and ministered to him physically and said, if this man has another bill, when I come back through, I'll pay it. They were of different races. The races and cultures didn't even speak to one another. But it's complete altruism, knowing that you're made of the same stuff I'm made of. We both have red blood. We're both human beings in the sight of God, and I got to love you. I've got to go the extra mile for you. And Dr. King's extra mile landed him in Memphis, Tennessee on that fatal day in 1968, where he was there working for and with garbage workers who were being underpaid. And we know what happened out there in Memphis in 1968, where he was assassinated. I had the privilege, and I took it out, traveled to Memphis, to the Lorraine Motel, the motel where he's assassinated. As many of you know, it is now a museum. It's frozen in time of everything that occurred that day. I got a chance to look at Dr. King's bedroom where he was, his personal materials, the balcony where he stood. The cars are there that were there that day. Everything frozen in time. It's a museum. And I said that I would go there and spend a few minutes or just spend an hour or so. I was there for another meeting, but I went over to the Lorraine Motel, and I found myself staying there for about 5 hours, going through that museum and thinking and imagining and remembering and seeing everything that's in that museum and trying to imagine what Dr. King must have gone through, trying to imagine how he felt that night when he was under threat after his house had been bombed for the first time, trying to imagine how one night he could not sleep and sat up to his table, couldn't sleep and couldn't stay awake. And he felt that he was to his end and fell flat on the table, found himself praying to God, saying, God, you've got me out here, and these people are following me, and I don't know what to do now. I'm up against the wall. And they expected me to lead them. I don't know what to do. I'm lost and I need you. And Martin King says that he felt the presence of God upon him at his kitchen table that night, somewhere around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And he began to get stronger. Heard a voice saying, I'm with you. I'm going to be with you. Go on. Take courage. I'm with you. I've got you out here. I called you. I sent you. And from that day on, Dr. King said that while he lived in fear and lived under the threat of death every day, that somehow or another he had it within himself to go on. While he was there in Memphis, he made a telephone call to Mrs. King, and I'm going to close when I mentioned this phone call, because I think within that is our message. It's what Dr. King is leaving to us. Some years ago, when I was executive director of the Greater Community Relations Council at the Greater Columbia Chamber of Commerce, we would have an annual luncheon every year to talk about improving Columbia with regard to race relations, with regard to all of us getting along, and the Chamber of Commerce sponsored that. I, in fact, worked for the Chamber. And this particular year, I didn't think I could pull it off, but I invited Mrs. King to come and speak when she was alive to Columbia. I didn't think that I would be able to do it. I went to some of my friends in the business community, went to some of the bankers and the other business people and said, I need to do this. I need some funds and I need some help, that I want to bring Mrs. King to Columbia. Well, the long and short of it is she did come to Columbia, and I got the opportunity to spend some time with her, one-on-one. I got the opportunity to spend a few hours with her. And I asked her about Martin King. For you see, I had studied Dr. King for many years. He's a mentor of mine, just as yours, and I've read all of his work. I've got all of his books, and I was interested in the personal side of him, what he thought about, what he talked about. And she told me about the phone call that he made to her that weekend, one of the phone calls that he was in Memphis. I call it the unpreached sermon. Dr. King said some things to her, and this is what I want to leave with us. This is what I think Dr. King is leaving to us. He said to Coretta Scott King in that phone call, he said, you know, Coretta, this was in 1968, he said, maybe the movement needs a change. At this point, the civil rights law had been passed and voting rights and a lot of things had changed legally. And he said, when I get back to Atlanta, we know he didn't get back. He said, when I get back to Atlanta, I'm going to preach on the topic of love. He said, I think that the laws have gone about as far as they can go. We got to now get in men's hearts. We got to get in men and women's hearts. We got to get in the inner sanctum. And the rest of the way we got to go, it's going to take love. Laws can do some things, but laws cannot touch the inner sanctum. What do you mean by that, Jesse? A fair housing law can allow me to buy a house anywhere my money will take me. If I got the money, I can get the house. That's what the law gives me. But the law will not make my neighbor speak to me when I'm standing in my yard. Law can't give me that. Law cannot work on the inner sanctum. It's got to be love. So she told me that Dr. King said, when I get back to Atlanta, when I get back to Ebenezer Baptist Church, I'm going to preach on love. And maybe this is the shift that we need to make in America. If we can get men and women to loving one another, then we can begin to make some progress. Laws are not going to get to the inner sanctum. Laws is not going to change the inside of us. So I'm going to preach on love. And from many of his sermons and speeches, we know that King looked at love in three ways, or under Greek philosophy, love is defined in three ways. There's eros. That's a good kind of love. It's the love that men have for women, women have for men. It's the love that holy matrimony is based upon. It's a good love, but it's not love that'll move a country. Then there's phileo. That love is based on reciprocity. It's based on what I can get out of the relationship. If you love me, I'll love you back. If you don't love me, I won't love you. That love sometimes gets us mixed up around Christmas time when we open Christmas gifts. We know that the price tag is not in the gift, but we're very busy unraveling it and looking at that gift, trying to determine the value, the price range. Why? So that when we give the gift back, it'll be in that same price range. In other words, I'll do for you what you do for me, based on reciprocity. What I can get out of the relationship. That's a kind of love, but that's not the kind of love that will move a country, that will move a people. Then there's the third kind of love. It's called agape. It's loving a person because God loves them. That's the kind of love that Martin King wanted to preach about. That's our message for today. It's not too late for love. We've got to learn to love. We've got to love one another because God loves us. We've got to be able to express genuine feelings of altruism toward one another because we're all caught by time and space. We're all in America together. We're all under the same sun. We're all under the same banner, the same American flag. We're all caught in an inescapable time warp. We got to figure out how to learn to love one another so we can live together, make the country progress. And I think that's King's message to us even this day. That's why his work was mixed up with spiritual work. You've got to be endowed with the Spirit to go through what he went through just on human energy. It's difficult to do. And I believe that what he left to us was that unpreached sermon. We got to love one another. Love will take us places where laws can never touch. Never touch. We can bring about all the laws we want to bring about, but it will not make me say hello to you. How are you doing? It will not make me feel sorry for you or empathize with you when something is going on in your life that's not good. It will not make me have joy for you when you're joyful. Laws won't do that, but my love will. My love will make me do that for you. And I think that's what Dr. King is saying to us. That somehow or another we've got to reach deep within. We've got to reach for that thing inside of us that causes us to love. And it makes no difference what religion we're in or what denomination we're in. It makes no difference. They're all based upon do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. All of the great religions of the world, all of the great denominations, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Before you do something to a person or say something about a person or take an action against a person, reverse it. Put yourself in that place and say, would I do this to myself? If I wouldn't do it to myself, don't do it to your neighbor. That's what King is saying to us, I believe. Love one another. That's the message of his philosophy. That's the message of the work that he's done. Love one another. Real love. Agape love. And I think if we can reach within and if we can get to that height, I think that we'll find our children will grow up and call us blessed. They will say, thank you for the America that you left for me. Thank you for the South Carolina that you left for me. I appreciate what you did. We've now got a foundation to grow stronger. Love is the message of Dr. King. God bless you all.
At this time, we will invite James Karsten, who is the Financial Center Manager for First Federal, and he will be doing recognitions. Following him will be Dennis Hempstead, the President and CEO of Clean World USA, and he will be doing the closing remarks.
Okay, tonight we'd like to thank our overall sponsor tonight of McLeod Health, our bronze sponsor of Anbro International Training and Business Consulting, and our reception sponsor of Sodexo Dining Services. Sodexo, I'm sorry. I'd also like for you to take your time and to read through the remaining sponsors of the Capital Club sponsors and the President Club sponsors of the Chamber. Also at this time, we'd like to thank the advisory committee that put this fine event together for us. Latasha Brand, Dr. Annie Brown, Daphne Carter McCants, Jerry Madison, and Teresa Ramey. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dennis Hempstead, and I'm the president and CEO of Clean World USA, and it's nice to see everybody out. And I've been charged with the responsibility of remarks, I guess you might say. So get ready. I'm going to reiterate what Pastor Washington talked about, so we'll be here for at least another hour or so because I'm going to remark, okay? If you all will allow that. No, I'm just kidding. But I tell you what, I'm very, very moved by the words, by the message that was presented. I think that Pastor Washington had it in a nutshell what Dr. King was all about. And I was talking to somebody about that just the other day, how much courage it took for a man to go against the system. You know, how many of you all out here would be willing to stand up against the government? Even the rules, the laws, he had to go and do things where the law said it was wrong. And he had to say, no, the law is wrong and I'm right. And that takes a lot of courage. Even in the Bible tells you to obey those who have rule over you. But he was standing up and saying, no, no, no. Even though it says it there's a higher purpose here. There's a fulfillment that you all just don't understand. You're just reading the letter. So I say Dr. King was probably, we can't even fathom the courage that it took to be able to do the things that he did. But it only took one person. And out here, each one of us, I say it only takes one of us to stand up and do what we must do. And if each of us does what Dr. Martin Luther King did and just stand up like Pastor Washington did in his residential neighborhood, just stand up, one person. Each person standing up for what's right, then Dr. Martin Luther King's dream will be truly realized in America. I believe that America is probably the first country, it will be the first country on this earth that realizes the trueness of what he was about. We're the only ones that can do that because we're the country that has all the mixture. All the other countries, except for maybe a few like England and those places, have, most other countries are what I call one race. China, Korea, they have people living there, but we are a country that is built up from the beginning of many races. So we have that opportunity to each stand up. So I thank you, Pastor Washington, for bringing that message to us, because with love, we can do all things. And I just want to say, let's love. Love. Amen? All right. God bless y'all. Thank you.
Good song, good message, but it's not over, because we would like for you to join us over at the Student Center for a reception. And our visual artist will be Lester Elementary. Isn't that nice? So if you'll please stand and we'll have the benediction.
We will now take a moment of silence as we remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and all of the thousands of men and women who have fought for the justice of others. Let it be known that we appreciate their efforts and dedication, and may our Heavenly Father continue to shine upon them. A moment of silence, please. Thank you.